The forest was silent that night. The moon hung low, casting silver light through the tall trees. Ethan Walker drove his old truck down the dirt road, heading home after another long day fixing engines at the town's repair shop. He was tired and just wanted to rest. Then suddenly, a bright blue flash lit up the sky. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't fireworks. It was something else. The light streaked across the clouds and disappeared behind the hills, followed by a loud boom that shook the ground. Birds flew out of the trees in panic. Ethan slammed the brakes, his heart racing. "What in the world was that?" he whispered. He turned off the engine and listened. The night was quiet again, but the smell of something burning filled the air. His curiosity won. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and followed the scent into the dark woods. The forest was dense and the ground was soft from recent rain. He moved carefully, pushing away branches. His flashlight beam jumped over roots and rocks until it landed on something strange, a long trail of scorched earth. It looked as if something had crashed there. Trees were broken and smoke rose from a deep trench. Ethan followed it, his heart thumping faster. Then he saw it. A small silver pod lay half buried in the ground. It was smooth and round, glowing faintly blue. Steam hissed from its sides. "What on earth?" Ethan murmured. He circled the pod, noticing strange symbols etched on its surface, curved letters that didn't look human. Cautiously, he reached out and touched it. The metal was warm. Suddenly a soft hiss echoed, and the pod's front opened with a click. Ethan jumped back. A pale light spilled out, and inside, he saw someone, a girl. She looked about 10 or 11, but her skin had a faint silver tint, and her eyes, wide and glowing softly, were not like any human eyes he had ever seen. They looked like liquid metal, shining in the dark. Her hair floated slightly, as if weightless, and her clothes were torn and burned at the edges. She stared at him, frightened and weak. Ethan raised his hands slowly. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." She tried to speak, but her words were strange, musical, like soft singing. He couldn't understand a thing. Then she collapsed forward. Ethan caught her just in time. Her skin was cool to the touch, almost like water. He looked around nervously. "What am I supposed to do with you?" In the distance, a low humming sound began, mechanical and sharp. Ethan froze. It sounded like machines, maybe drones. The noise grew louder, moving through the trees. Someone, or something, was searching for her. Without thinking, Ethan lifted the girl in his arms. She was lighter than she looked. He stumbled through the forest, trying to stay quiet. The humming grew louder behind him. A red light swept across the trees, scanning the ground. He ducked behind a fallen log, holding his breath. The girl stirred weakly and whispered something in her strange language. Her voice was soft, trembling. "It's okay," Ethan whispered back. "Just stay still." A drone floated above the trees, glowing red, scanning the crash site. It made a high-pitched beeping sound, then turned toward Ethan's direction. His heart pounded. He held the girl closer and crawled deeper into the woods. The drone followed, its light sweeping closer. Suddenly, the girl raised her hand weakly. Her eyes glowed brighter. A wave of blue light shot from her fingers, silent but powerful. The drone sparked, then exploded in midair, vanishing in a flash of smoke. Ethan stared, shocked. What was that?" The girl's eyes dimmed again, and she fainted in his arms. It took nearly an hour for Ethan to reach his cabin on the edge of the forest. He kicked open the door and placed her gently on the couch. The power flickered as if something invisible was draining the energy from the air. He checked her pulse. It was there, but faint. He covered her with a blanket and sat down, running a hand through his hair. "Okay," he muttered. "Let's think she's not human. That thing in the forest, some kind of ship. But who's chasing her?" Outside, the night was quiet again. No sound of drones. Only the distant howl of wind. The girl's breathing steadied. For a moment she looked peaceful, like any normal child sleeping. Ethan sighed and leaned back in his chair, exhaustion catching up with him. But just as his eyes began to close, a whisper filled the room. "Etha." He froze. The girl's eyes were open again, glowing silver. She stared right at him. "How do you know my name?" he whispered, terrified. She blinked slowly and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "Help. Me." Then her eyes went dark, and she fell silent once more. Ethan sat frozen in place. The the sound of her strange voice echoing in his mind. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but one thing was clear. Whatever she was running from wasn't far behind, and by finding her, Ethan had just stepped into something far bigger than he could ever imagine. The morning light crept slowly through the cracks of the cabin's wooden walls. Ethan woke up in his chair, stiff and tired. For a second he thought last night had been a dream, but then he turned his head. She was still there. The silver-eyed girl lay quietly on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. Her chest rose and fell slowly. The morning sun reflected off her skin, making it shimmer like liquid metal. Ethan rubbed his eyes and whispered, "So you're real." He got up, still unsure what to do. Was she dangerous? Was someone looking for her? The burned path in the forest, the flying machines, everything about last night felt too real to ignore. He warmed some soup on the stove and poured it into a bowl. The smell filled the cabin. That's when he heard a soft sound behind him. The girl was awake. She sat up slowly, her silver eyes watching him with caution. When he offered her the bowl, she hesitated, sniffed it, then took a small sip. Her expression changed. For the first time, Ethan saw her smile, a small, shy smile that made his chest tighten. He pointed to himself. "Ethan," she looked at him, tilting her head. Then she pointed to herself and said softly, "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated. "That's your name?" She nodded, her smile growing a little. The day passed slowly. Ethan gave her some clothes from an old storage box, though they were too big. She seemed fascinated by everything, the table, the window, even the flickering light bulb. At one point, she touched the radio on the shelf. It suddenly crackled to life, even though it hadn't worked in months. Ethan stared in disbelief. "Okay, that's new." Lyra giggled quietly as if she understood his surprise, but not everything was peaceful. Around noon, a low humming sound filled the air again. Ethan froze and rushed to the window. In the distance, 3 black shapes moved across the sky. Small, hovering machines with flashing red lights. Drones. The same kind as last night. Ethan's heart pounded. "They're back." He turned to Lyra. "You have to hide, now." She didn't understand his words, but she saw the fear in his eyes. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the basement door. He opened it, and they went down the creaking stairs into the dark space below. The basement smelled of dust and oil. Ethan covered the small window and turned off the lights. They sat in silence, only hearing the faint hum above. Lyra looked scared again. She reached out and touched his sleeve. "Bad people?" she asked slowly. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, very bad." Through the floorboards they heard the sound of footsteps, metallic and heavy. Someone or something was outside the cabin. A red beam of light swept across the cracks in the window. Ethan held his breath. The drone hovered outside for several seconds, scanning. Then it moved on. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the sound faded away. Ethan exhaled, his hands shaking. That was too close. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "Safe?" He nodded. "For now." She hesitated, then reached out and touched his forehead gently. For a moment, Ethan saw flashes in his mind. Strange cities floating in the clouds, towers of glass, and a huge palace surrounded by stars. He gasped and stumbled back. What did you just do?" Lyra looked confused, but tried to explain. "You see, my home," Ethan stared at her. "Your home? You mean another world?" She nodded sadly. "Far away. Ship, broken." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "So you're really from space?" Lyra looked down and whispered, "I run. They find me." "Who's they?" Ethan asked. She shook her head, unable to find the right words. Then she looked at him with fear in her eyes. "If they find me, you die." The words sent a chill through him. That night, after making sure no more drones were near, Ethan brought her some food and a blanket. She sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Outside, the forest was quiet, but Ethan could feel something watching. The world suddenly felt smaller, darker, and much more dangerous. He sat beside her. "You can stay here for now. I'll figure something out." Lyra looked at him. "Why, help me?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because you needed it. That's all." She didn't understand completely, but her eyes softened. The firelight danced across her face, and for a moment, it almost felt peaceful again. Then a sudden knock hit the door, loud, sharp. Ethan's heart stopped. He grabbed his flashlight and slowly moved toward the sound. "Open up," a man's voice shouted. "We're with the government. We need to check your property." Lyra's eyes went wide with fear. Ethan turned to her. "Hide!" She ran back to the basement. Ethan opened the door a crack and saw two men in dark suits and black helmets. Their badges gleamed in the moonlight. "Sir," one said, "we're looking for something that crashed nearby. You seen anything unusual?" Ethan swallowed hard, forcing a calm smile. "No, sir. Just a quiet night." The man stared at him for a moment too long, then nodded. "If you see anything, call us." They walked away into the dark. Ethan shut the door and locked it tight. His hands were trembling. From the basement he heard a soft whisper. Lyra calling his name. He leaned against the wall, breathing fast. He had no idea who those men were. But he knew one thing: whatever Lyra was hiding from, it had already found its way to his door. Ethan barely slept that night. Every sound outside the cabin made him jump. The memory of those black-suited men, the crash, and the strange glowing girl kept playing in his mind. By morning, the forest was calm again, but his heart wasn't. He stepped outside to fetch water, his shotgun resting on his shoulder. The ground still showed faint burn marks from where the pod had fallen. The air smelled faintly of metal and smoke. When he returned to the cabin, Lyra was sitting by the window, quietly watching the birds. Her silver eyes followed each one with childlike wonder. She turned to him and smiled weakly. "You okay?" Ethan asked. She nodded but pointed to the sky. "They coming." Ethan froze. "Who?" She hesitated. "My people," he frowned. "Your people? You mean aliens?" Lyra tilted her head, trying to understand his word. Then she nodded slowly. "Yes, my people, they find me." Ethan poured water into a pot and tried to act normal, but his hands were shaking. "And what happens if they find you?" Lyra's voice grew small. "Earth? Not safe, Mother. Angry." Ethan stared at her. "Angry? Why?" "You're her daughter." Lyra looked away, her eyes dimming. "Mother strong. No human touch, royal blood, law. Say death." The words hit Ethan like a cold wind. "Wait, you mean if she finds out I helped you? She'll kill me?" Lyra didn't answer. She just looked down, ashamed. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Outside, the wind rustled the trees and the silence grew heavy. Then suddenly, the cabin lights flickered. A deep hum filled the air, shaking the windows. Ethan ran outside and his breath caught in his throat. The sky was no longer blue. It was silver, glowing with hundreds of floating shapes. Ships, dozens of them, sleek, metallic, and enormous, hovered above the clouds. The sunlight glinted off their curved armor. A strange symbol flashed across their undersides, the same one he had seen on Lyra's pod. Ethan stumbled back in shock. "Oh my God." The air vibrated with a low echoing sound. Then a voice filled the sky, clear and cold. It wasn't coming from speakers or machines. It was everywhere. "People of Earth, you hold what belongs to the Empire of Aelora. Return the princess or face judgment." Ethan's stomach dropped. He turned toward the cabin. "Princess?" Lyra stood in the doorway, her eyes glowing faintly. "You're a princess?" he whispered. She nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, Lyra of Aelora, daughter of Empress." Ethan could hardly breathe. "You've got to be kidding me." The voice in the sky continued. "You have one planetary rotation to surrender her. After that, we will cleanse this world." The ships moved slowly across the clouds, leaving trails of light like burning comets. People in the town would see it soon. The whole world would. Ethan turned back to Lyra. "We need to do something. We can't let them think Earth kidnapped you." She shook her head. "They not listen. They afraid of human." "Afraid of us? We don't even have ships like that," Ethan said, frustrated. Lyra whispered, "They fear what they do not understand." Her voice trembled and she looked away. "They think you changed me." Ethan blinked. "Changed you how?" Lyra touched her heart. "You helped kindness. In Aelora, only strong survive. No kindness there." Her words made him pause. He had seen something in her eyes from the start. A quiet loneliness. Maybe she wasn't just lost. Maybe she had never known real care before. Suddenly, the sound of engines roared nearby. Ethan ran to the window and saw 3 military helicopters flying toward the forest. "Oh no," he muttered. "The government." Lyra stood up, her glow fading. They come. They take me. Ethan's mind raced. If the army found her, they'd hand her over, or worse, experiment on her. He couldn't let that happen. Pack your things, he said quickly. We're leaving. Lyra tilted her head. Where go? Anywhere they won't look first, Ethan replied, grabbing a bag. She nodded and reached out to touch his arm. The moment her hand brushed his skin, a flood of images filled his mind again. Flashes of her home. Her mother sitting on a throne of light. And a crown that burned like fire. But this time Ethan saw something new. The Empress wasn't just powerful, she was furious. Her eyes were cold, her voice sharp as steel. When the vision ended, Ethan was breathing hard. She's not coming to save you, Lyra. She's coming to destroy anyone who touched you. Lyra's voice broke. I not want this. I only want home. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll find a way to talk to them. There has to be another way. Before they could move, the radio on the shelf crackled to life, though it wasn't plugged in. A voice echoed through it, low and commanding. Ethan Walker. You have what belongs to the Aeloran Empire. Ethan froze. They know my name. Do not resist. The Empress wishes to speak with you. Lyra's eyes filled with fear. No, she will kill you! The voice continued, almost calm. Bring her to the clearing tonight, or your world will burn. The radio went silent. Ethan and Lyra stared at each other, both pale, both terrified. Outside, the alien ship still glowed above the clouds like silent gods. And for the first time, Ethan realized he wasn't just protecting a lost girl anymore. He was standing between two worlds. The night air was cold and sharp. Ethan stood by the window staring at the faint glow of the alien ship still floating above the clouds. They didn't move, didn't make a sound, but he could feel them watching. Lyra sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her silver eyes dim with fear. Every now and then she would whisper something in her language, a prayer maybe, or a name. Ethan didn't understand the words, but the sadness in her voice said everything. Lyra, he said softly, we have to leave this place. If they know where I live, it's only a matter of time. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. No safe anywhere. Ethan sighed. We'll find something. I'm not giving you up. He didn't notice at first, but a faint rumble began to build in the distance like thunder rolling over the mountains. He stepped outside, his breath turning white in the cold air. The forest was glowing faintly from the moonlight, and then he saw them. Helicopters. 3 of them. Their blades cut through the night sky, their searchlights slicing through the trees. Behind them, military trucks rolled down the dirt road toward his cabin. Ethan's stomach dropped. They're here. He rushed inside. Lyra, downstairs now. She didn't argue. They ran into the basement, the wooden steps creaking beneath their feet. Ethan pulled a heavy crate over the door just as headlights flooded the yard. The rumble of engines stopped. Boots hit the ground, dozens of them. Voices shouted orders outside. Secure the perimeter. Scan for energy signatures. Ethan's heart pounded. He peeked through a crack in the wall. Soldiers in black uniforms surrounded his cabin, carrying strange equipment that blinked with red lights. A man in a gray coat stood at the front, holding a tablet that glowed blue. Lyra grabbed Ethan's hand. Her touch was cold but steady. They find us. Not if we're quiet, Ethan whispered. Then, from above, a mechanical whir filled the air. One of the soldiers released a small sphere that hovered in place, scanning the ground with thin beams of light. The beam swept across the cabin, then stopped. Ethan froze. The red light shone directly over the basement trapdoor. The officer shouted, We've got a reading. Lyra's eyes widened. She looked at Ethan and whispered, They take me. You die. Ethan shook his head. Not happening. He reached for an old rifle leaning against the wall, but Lyra placed her hand over his. No. I protect. Before he could respond, she stepped forward, her silver glow returning, brighter this time, filling the dark basement with soft light. Outside, the soldiers moved in. The trapdoor blew open with a loud bang. Smoke and dust filled the air as armed men stormed down the steps. But what they saw stopped them cold. Lyra stood in the center of the basement, glowing like a living star. Her eyes blazed with silver fire, and her long hair floated around her like it was underwater. The air shimmered, bending around her. Stay back, Ethan shouted. The soldiers didn't listen. One fired a tranquilizer dart. It never reached her. The dart melted mid-air, Then Lyra raised her hand. A wave of blue energy pulsed through the room. The soldiers were thrown backward like leaves in a storm. Their weapons flew out of their hands and the lights flickered violently. Ethan shielded his eyes. "Lyra, stop! You'll kill them!" She trembled, struggling to control the power. "They hurt you."
No, listen to me.
"You don't have to." Her glowing eyes met his, and for a moment she hesitated. The light dimmed, fading back into her body. The soldiers groaned on the ground, dazed but alive. The officer shouted orders again, trying to stand. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "Now's our chance, move." They ran up the stairs, pushing through smoke and broken wood. Outside, the yard was chaos. Trucks overturned, lights flickering, soldiers shouting into radios. Ethan jumped into his truck and started the engine. "Come on, come on!" The engine roared to life and they sped down the dirt road. Bullets pinged off the metal behind them, but they didn't stop. The forest swallowed them again. For miles, neither spoke. The glow of the ships above still painted the clouds silver. Finally, Ethan slowed the truck and pulled off the road near an old mining tunnel. They sat there in silence, both breathing hard. Ethan turned to her. "You saved me back there." "You didn't have to." Lyra looked out the window, her voice soft. "You saved me first," he smiled faintly. "Guess that makes us even." Then she turned to him, her expression serious. "They not stop. My mother know now." "She come," Ethan frowned. "Your mother, the Empress?" Lyra nodded. "She see everything. She angry. Think you steal me." Ethan laughed dryly, shaking his head. "Steal you? I didn't even want to be part of this." But deep down he knew it was too late to turn back. He was part of it now. Lyra reached out and touched his arm gently. "You brave. My people no understand brave like human." He looked at her, confused but touched. "I'm just trying to do the right thing." She smiled sadly. "That why you in danger?" Ethan glanced toward the sky where faint lights still shimmered behind the clouds. "Then I guess I'll just have to survive it." As the wind blew through the forest, Lyra looked up too. Her silver eyes reflected the stars. She whispered something Ethan couldn't understand. But the word mother was clear. Far above Earth, beyond the clouds, a giant ship began to move. The Empress of Aelora had found her daughter, and she was coming. The next morning, the world was no longer the same. Every news channel showed the same terrifying sight. Giant ships floating over the sky. Cities had gone silent. People were afraid to leave their homes. Some said it was the end of the world. Others called it the second arrival. But in the middle of all that fear, one man was hiding deep in the forest with the alien princess everyone was looking for. Ethan Walker sat by a dying campfire near the entrance of an abandoned mine. His hands were dirty, his eyes red from no sleep. Beside him sat Lyra, quiet as ever, her silver eyes watching the flames dance. They had been running for days, always moving, always hiding. Ethan stirred the ashes with a stick. "They've probably searched every inch of this forest by now." Lyra looked up. "They find us soon." He gave her a weak smile. "You sound so sure of that." She didn't smile back. "Mother always find," Ethan sighed. "Yeah, I'm starting to believe that." A sudden noise cut through the quiet morning, a deep humming sound like thunder under the earth. Ethan's head snapped up. "What was that?" Lyra's face went pale. "Ship, close." The air began to vibrate. Leaves fell from the trees. Then the light changed, the sky above them turned silver. Ethan grabbed her hand. "Come on." They ran into the mine, the air filling with a strange electric crackle. Behind them, a massive shadow passed over the trees. A ship, black, smooth, and shaped like a blade, landed in the clearing. The ground shook as its ramp descended. From the blinding light, figures appeared. Tall, armored beings with glowing blue armor and masks that hid their faces. Alien soldiers. Ethan and Lyra hid behind a wall of rock inside the mine, breathing hard. "They'll find us," he whispered. "We're trapped." Lyra's hands trembled. "I talked to them." Ethan shook his head. "No, if you go out there, they'll take you." Lyra looked at him sadly. "If I stay, they kill you." Before he could stop her, she stepped out from behind the rock. "Lyra, no!" The soldiers turned instantly. They knelt on one knee and lowered their weapons. Their leader, wearing a silver chest plate with glowing markings, stepped forward. "Your Highness," he said in a voice that echoed inside the cave, "we are ordered to bring you to the Empress now." Ethan came out slowly, his hands raised. Wait, she's not a prisoner. She came here by accident. The alien leader looked at him, his expression unreadable beneath his mask. Human, you will not speak. Ethan took a step forward anyway. If you hurt her, you'll have to go through me first. The soldier lifted his hand. A burst of energy shot out, throwing Ethan against the wall. He hit the ground hard, the air knocked from his lungs. Ethan! Lyra screamed. She ran toward him, her hands glowing with silver light. But before she could reach him, something heavy wrapped around her arms, energy cuffs that shimmered like glass. Please, she begged. He no hurt me. He saved me. The soldier paused. He touched you. Lyra froze. Yes, he help. The soldier's tone changed instantly. Then he is forbidden. The Empress will decide his fate. They lifted Ethan's limp body and carried them both toward the ship. When Ethan woke again, he was lying on something soft but cold, a floor made of glowing white metal. The air smelled clean, almost too clean. He blinked and saw Lyra beside him, still cuffed but unharmed. He pushed himself up, his voice hoarse. Where are we? Lyra's eyes were full of tears. Mother's ship. Ethan turned and froze. Standing at the far end of the room was a tall woman in a gown made of light. Her eyes glowed like Lyra's but brighter, sharper and colder. Her presence filled the air with power. She didn't walk. She glided forward. The Empress of Aelora. Lyra whispered, trembling. Mother. The Empress didn't look at her daughter first, her gaze fixed on Ethan. So, this is the human who dared to touch royal blood. Ethan swallowed hard. I didn't mean to. She was hurt. I just helped her. Her voice was calm, too calm. Helped her? You defied galactic law. Do you know what that means? He met her eyes. I don't care about your laws. I care that your daughter was alone, scared, and bleeding. You weren't there. I was. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then the Empress raised her hand. A wave of invisible force lifted Ethan off the ground. He struggled to breathe. Mother, no, Lyra cried. He saved me. The Empress stopped, her eyes narrowing. Save you? Lyra nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. He protect me. He kind. The Empress's hand trembled. Slowly, she lowered it. Ethan dropped to the floor, gasping. For the first time, there was confusion in the Empress's eyes. A human the kind? She whispered. Ethan coughed and forced a smile. Yeah, surprising, huh? The Empress stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to her guards. Leave us. The soldiers bowed and left the chamber, the doors sealing behind them with a hiss. The Empress stepped closer to Ethan, studying him like a scientist studying a strange new creature. You risked your life for her, why? Ethan looked at Lyra, then back at the Empress. Because she needed someone. That's all. The Empress tilted her head slightly. In Aelora, no one helps without reason. You humans are different. She turned away, her voice quieter now. Perhaps. Not all weakness is bad. Lyra rushed to her mother, tears still in her eyes. Mother, please. He is good. The Empress looked at her daughter, truly looked, and something softened in her face. Maybe, she said softly. We shall see. But deep inside her eyes, Ethan saw something else, a spark of curiosity, and something dangerous. The Empress wasn't done with him yet. Ethan had never seen anything like the Aeloran ship. From the outside, it looked like a mountain of silver floating through the stars. Inside it was silent. No engines, no footsteps, only the soft hum of light. The walls moved like they were alive, glowing faintly when someone passed by. He followed two tall guards down a long hallway. They didn't speak, didn't even glance at him. The air smelled like metal and rain. Behind him, Lyra walked beside the Empress. Her hands were still bound by glowing cuffs. Ethan could hear her whispering softly to her mother, but the Empress didn't answer. She only stared straight ahead, her face unreadable. They entered a huge room with a transparent floor. Beneath it stretched the stars, thousands of them. It was beautiful, almost unreal. But Ethan didn't have time to admire it. The Empress turned, her long gown shimmering like liquid light. You stand before the throne of Aelora, she said coldly. A human who broke our sacred law. Ethan met her gaze. I didn't break anything. I saved your daughter's life. Her expression didn't change. And for that you have made yourself part of her fate. What does that even mean? Ethan asked, frustration building. The Empress stepped closer. It means your existence now touches ours. and that is something the universe does not forgive easily. She circled him slowly, studying him like a scientist studying a new creature. Tell me, human, why did you risk yourself for someone you did not know? Ethan's voice was low. Because she needed help. That's it. The Empress raised an eyebrow. Help, such a simple word. On Aelora, no one gives without taking. No one saves without a price. Well, Ethan said, then maybe that's what makes us different. The Empress stopped. For a moment, she looked almost surprised. Then her voice softened. Different, yes. That is what Lyra said too. She turned to her daughter. He made you weak. You care for him. Lyra looked down. Not weak, mother, alive. That word hung in the air, alive. The Empress said nothing for a long time. Finally, she lifted her hand and the glowing cuffs around Lyra's wrists dissolved into mist. Go to your quarters, she ordered. The human stays, Lyra hesitated. Mother, go. Reluctantly, Lyra obeyed. As the door closed behind her, the Empress turned back to Ethan. She walked toward the massive glass wall that showed the stars. Your world is small, she said quietly. You fight over land, over power, over things that do not matter. And yet you have something my people have lost, Ethan frowned. What's that? Heart, she said simply. Compassion. You risked your life without reward. No soldier of Aelora would do such a thing. Ethan didn't answer. The Empress turned to him again. Tell me, human. If I gave you a choice, your freedom or her safety, what would you choose? Ethan didn't even hesitate. Her safety. The Empress studied him carefully. Even though she is not your kind? Yes, he said. Because kindness isn't about kind. It's about right. Her eyes softened just a little. You speak like a fool, she said, but there was something almost gentle in her tone. Maybe, Ethan replied, but I'm still breathing. That's something. Suddenly the lights flickered. A low alarm echoed through the ship. The Empress touched her wrist and a holographic image appeared, one of her captains. Your Majesty, the soldier said. There has been an attack. Rebel ships are approaching. The Empress's calm expression didn't change. Rebels. They still dare. She looked at Ethan. It seems your species brings chaos wherever it goes. Ethan crossed his arms. Hey, don't blame me for your problems. The Empress gave a small smile, barely visible. Perhaps not. But now, you will see what your kindness means in war. The walls opened like petals, revealing the stars outside. Dozens of smaller ships swarmed toward them, firing bright streams of energy. The Empress raised her hand, and the entire ship responded as if it were part of her body. Shields shimmered. Cannons appeared from the hull like blooming flowers. The battle was silent and beautiful, a dance of light in the darkness. But then, one of the explosions hit close. The ship trembled and part of the ceiling cracked. Ethan stumbled as the lights dimmed. He saw something moving. A beam had fallen near the Empress. Without thinking, he ran forward and pushed her aside. The beam crashed where she had been standing. When the shaking stopped, the Empress looked at him in disbelief. You saved me? Ethan shrugged. Guess I'm making a habit of it. For the first time, the Empress laughed. It was quiet but real. You are either brave or foolish. Maybe both, Ethan said. When the fighting ended, silence filled the room again. The Empress turned to him, her face thoughtful. I cannot understand you, human. You risk your life for others again and again. Even for those who threaten you, Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe you don't need to understand it. Maybe you just need to feel it. The Empress looked away, her eyes distant. Perhaps that is what my people forgot. She walked closer and said softly, You have a strange strength, Ethan Walker. A strength not of power, but of heart. Then, unexpectedly, she added, I think I want to know more. Ethan blinked. What do you mean? Her gaze met his, calm but intense. You will dine with me tomorrow alone. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The Empress smiled faintly. Do not mistake this for mercy. It is curiosity. As she turned away, Ethan couldn't help but feel a chill. Because in her voice, there wasn't just curiosity. There was something else. Something dangerous. Something human. The next day felt unreal. Ethan stood before a tall mirror made of crystal-like glass. Alien attendants had given him clean clothes, soft silver fabric that fit perfectly, though he had no idea how they measured him. He looked like someone else entirely, someone who belonged to the stars. His heart beat faster. Dinner with the Empress. He wasn't sure if that was an honor or a trap. When the door opened, a soldier bowed. Her Majesty awaits. Ethan followed him through shining corridors that glowed with blue light. The floor reflected the stars below. It felt like walking on the edge of space. At the end of the hallway stood two massive doors. They opened without a sound. Inside, the room looked like a palace of light. The walls shimmered, the ceiling looked like a galaxy, and in the center was a long silver table covered with strange, glowing food. At the far end sat the Empress of Aelora, wearing a crown that looked carved from pure starlight. "Come, human," she said softly. "Sit." Ethan did, feeling awkward. The food moved slightly, alive maybe, but tasted surprisingly good. For a while, they ate in silence. Then the Empress spoke. "You are quiet, Ethan Walker." He gave a small smile. "Hard to know what to say when you're sitting with the ruler of a galaxy." The Empress chuckled lightly. "You are not afraid of me anymore." "I still am," Ethan said honestly. "But I'm getting used to it." She studied him carefully. "You are not like the others of your kind. You do not beg, you do not boast. You simply care." He shrugged. "That's just how we survive back home. Caring keeps us human." The Empress leaned back. "On Aelora, caring makes you weak. But lately, I wonder if weakness is what we need." Her eyes softened slightly. "You risked your life for Lyra. You even saved mine. My people see that as foolish." "I see something else," Ethan frowned. "And what's that?" "Truth," she said simply. "A heart that acts before the mind. We lost that long ago." A long silence filled the room. Then she stood, walking to the glass wall that overlooked the stars. "Look, Ethan, do you see that blue planet below?" He turned. It wasn't Earth, but another world. Beautiful, glowing, alive. "That," she said, "is Aelora. My home, my burden." He watched her carefully. "It's beautiful." Her expression darkened. "Beauty hides cruelty." Every smile on that planet was bought with obedience. Every victory with silence. Ethan didn't know what to say. She turned to face him again. "Lyra's crash was no accident. My court plotted against her to take my throne. When she escaped, I thought she was dead." Her voice broke slightly. "But then I saw her safe with you." Ethan frowned. "You mean you attacked Earth thinking we hurt her?" "Yes," the Empress said softly. "I let my anger blind me." Her silver eyes looked sad now, almost human. "And then I saw how you treated her. No power, no fear, no greed, only kindness." Ethan lowered his head. "Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, not anyone. Not in this universe." She walked closer, stopping in front of him. "Do you know what happens now?" Ethan looked up cautiously. "I get to go home?" She smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but not yet." Then, to his surprise, she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warm, alive with energy. "I have made my decision," she said quietly. "You will stay on Aelora." Beside me, Ethan froze. "Beside you?" The Empress's gaze was steady. "You will be honored as the savior of the royal line." And her voice softened. "You will be my consort." For a moment, the words didn't even register. Then Ethan stood stunned. "Wait, you want to marry me?" Her lips curved into a slight smile. "You say it so small as if it is not a great thing." Ethan shook his head. "You barely know me. I'm just a mechanic from Earth." "And yet," she said, stepping closer, "you changed everything. My daughter's heart, my belief, my world." He took a step back. "I don't belong here. I'm not one of you." Her expression turned calm again, but her eyes glowed with quiet power. "You are wrong. You are exactly what my people need. A reminder that mercy still exists." The doors opened suddenly. Lyra ran in, her face pale. "Mother, no!" The Empress turned. "You forget your place, daughter." Lyra shook her head. "He cannot stay here. He has a home, a life. You cannot take him." Ethan looked between them, unsure what to say. The Empress's voice dropped to a whisper. "He belongs to destiny now." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Then destiny is cruel." For a long moment, the three of them stood in silence. Then the Empress looked at Ethan one last time. "You are free to choose," she said softly. "Earth or Aelora?" Ethan's chest tightened. Earth meant safety, but leaving meant abandoning Lyra, the girl he had saved, the one who had trusted him with her life. He looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere down there was home. Somewhere up here was everything that had changed him. He turned slowly to face them both. "If I go," he said quietly, "I'll just be a man who once met the stars. But if I stay, the Empress waited. Ethan smiled faintly. Then maybe I can change them. The Empress's eyes softened. Then your choice is made. Lyra ran to him and hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes. You stay? He nodded. Looks like it. The Empress raised her hand and the stars outside brightened. Let it be known, she said, her voice echoing across the ship. The man of Earth will stand beside the throne of Aelora. The guards knelt. The stars pulsed. Ethan looked out at the galaxy, feeling the weight of it all. A mechanic, a lost girl, an empire reborn. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. The universe would never be the same again.